for July 26th, planning board meeting. The first order of business, actually it is what, 7:01. The first order of business is election of board chair and vice chair for fiscal year 2023. So the floor is open to nominations for board chair.
I nominate you.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
I'll second.
Anybody else want one of these second minutes?
I move the nomination cease.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. So I will be your president for the next year, president, right, your chair for the next year. You want me president. Okay, nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Jeff.
And I nominate him.
Okay, so we have two nominations here.
Someone has to second yours.
Oh,
I'll second Jeff.
okay. Just a moment. Put this down.
Sorry.
Trying to do double duty here, and secretarial work as well. So Jeff, you nominated Randy,
I did.
and who seconded Randy? Okay, Mark. And Jeff, and Randy, you nominated him. What do you guys think? You just made it complicated.
I just want to stir the
And Brett, you seconded Randy, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, all righty. Any other nominations? Nominations are closed. Okay, so those in favor of Randy for vice chair for this next fiscal year? You didn't even look for yourself. And those in favor of Jeff for this next fiscal year?
I can't vote.
I know you're not there, so. All right, so congratulations, Jeff. And you're breathing a sigh of relief. Okay. Huh? Okay. Alrighty, so we'll have the roll call, starting with me, and we'll just go around the circle here, and please speak loudly for the benefit of the Zoom meeting as well as for the benefit of those in the audience today. I am Mary Tomlinson, Chair of the Planning Board Committee.
I'm Randy Bliss, planning board member.
I'm Robin Turek, member,
Associate Member.
associate member, sorry.
Jeff Drew is vice chair.
Mark Doty, member of the planning board.
Brett Hagopian, member of the planning board.
Joel?
Joel Greenwood, contracted planner with KV Cog.
And Jay?
Jay Watt, Code Enforcement Officer.
And Steve?
I'm not a member.
No, you're not a member, but you're one of the featured speakers.
Oh, I'm Steve
I'm sorry,
Gould.
where were you two from again? So we can't hear anything back here.
Which one?
You two gentlemen, where are you?
I'm Jay Watt, I'm the new Code Enforcement Officer.
My name's Joel Greenwood, I'm the contracted planner via KV Cog, Kennebec Valley Council of Government.
I'm Steve Gould. I'm here for other business for Charles Robbins.
And those of you who are here representing the project, would you please introduce yourselves? Kara?
Sam Pike, 55 Weston.
Kara Lillard?
And Brian Knight, 55 Weston.
And on Zoom we have John Witten, who is representing Haley Ward, who's the engineer on the project.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, so I will open the public hearing. It is 7.
You have to approve your minutes.
Oh, you're right, I've skipped over that. Okay. I'm not opening the public hearing yet. Okay, I need a motion to waive the reading and approve the minutes of June 28th. Thank you, Mark. And who is second?
Second.
Randy? Any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay. And motion carried. Okay, now we'll move to the public hearing for the housing project known as 55 Weston LLC, located on map 021-173. I will first start with a presentation by either Sam or Tara. Okay, and following that, we'll open the floor for questions. If anyone has a question or you want to testify or what have you, or speak tonight, please make sure you sign that paper. And when we're ready, I will get that and then call you to talk. The time limit to speak will be 3 minutes, and we will have a timer. Okay? So, Kara or Sam, either one of you want to give us a brief overview, please?
Sure. Thank you. If anyone's ever been to a meeting with me, normally I have a speech all prepared, but they said 3 minutes, so that's going to be fairly difficult for
That
me.
doesn't apply to you.
Oh, doesn't. Oh, I hope everyone's
It
comfortable.
doesn't apply to him, but it applies to the people that are speaking that are actually from the town.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't, that rule doesn't apply to him, but it applies to the town.
He's giving an overview of the project
I will be
for
brief.
informational purposes.
So, the reason this project existed, the town of Madison had a housing study in 2021, and they realized that housing, there was a huge housing shortage for the area. So, in the past, the town had looked at local contractors asking, how can we provide affordable housing to our local areas? And with the current conditions with rising interest rates and the rising cost of development and construction materials, it was virtually impossible without some specialized financing and subsidies. That being said, Tim, the town manager, came to me and said, Sam, I know you're a developer. We would like some help in Madison in order to provide what the town needs, which is housing. So I said, well, you know, traditionally the Height family has dealt with cars and commercial real estate properties. So I thought, well, let's tackle what's needed most here in this area, not only Madison, but Skowhegan and Maine in general, rural Maine. So housing was needed. I wanted to figure out how to provide housing in this area. I partnered with Kara Wilbur, who's a designer and developer from New Portland, Maine, North New Portland, Maine. Don't let the papers fool you. She's not from Portland, North New Portland, Maine. And Brian Eng, who's a developer out of Portland as well. I, not being fully versed in rural housing, more the commercial and the car dealerships, like I said, wanted to partner with some people that knew what they were doing, what programs were available for developments like this. So fortunately, the stars aligned. I met Kara, I met Brian. I did plenty of vetting on them. I still trust them. They are nice people, I promise you that. And the stars aligned, and Maine Housing came out with 2 programs. The first Maine Housing program was a rural affordable ownership program, and that was going to subsidize developers. This is not subsidizing the homeowner or the renter. This is subsidizing the developer in order for the numbers to make any sense for any developer. So it came out with an affordable home ownership program first, which that's where we started here in Madison. And then a few weeks later, they came out with the affordable rural rental program, which is going to focus on affordable housing for rural Mainers that tier in between, rough numbers as you saw in the paper, is about $40,000 to $70,000 household income. This is not low-income housing. There are no Section 8 subsidies here. This is affordable housing for people that we are targeting in the area. And this will be retirees that are downsizing, looking for, you know, my parents live in a big house, and my father's had 2 hips and a knee done. I'm going to have to retrofit the downstairs, or I'm going to have to, send him on his way. So this will be affordable for not only the retirees, but big projects going on right now. Go Labs, they're going to have eventually 120 employees, and a lot of them are going to be young professionals in between that $40,000 to $70,000 medium household income looking for housing. When I talk to, I'm on the board of the Skowhegan Savings Bank, I'm on the board of Reddington Fairview General Hospital, and the biggest problem with attracting and retaining young talent is affordable housing in the area. You might get a nurse come to the area, but there's no apartment for them. You might get someone coming looking at Go Labs. There's no housing for them. So where are they going to end up? They're going to end up in Portland, Auburn, Augusta, Lewiston, where they're already looking at affordable housing. So fortunately, we're working with Maine Housing. There's 2 phases here. Phase 1, as you see here, will be 2 units, 2 full-size buildings, 18 units in those, and that will be for rental. And the rentals will go from, say, $980 to $1,280. This is everything included. This is electrical, heat, everything. There will be solar there. There will be heat pumps, high efficiency insulation. So when someone's looking to relocate, whether it could be a relocate to work in the area at the hospitals, the schools, Go Labs, or whatnot. It could be downsizing retirees, not just coming to the area, but just relocating out of their big old house that they don't want to manage anymore. So here they are, and they'll fit the income requirements. We are not setting the income requirements. That is a state of Maine assessment and a state of Maine calculation. They look at 80% median household income in this area. And after looking at the housing study that Tim showed us, this will hit the demographic where the housing is needed mostly. I moved home, so brief history. Yes, I'm a 111-year car business, 4 generations, but I moved home 14 years ago in 2008 to take over another family business, and I got involved with the Chamber, Main Street, Somerset Economic Development Corp. Basically, I wanted to help provide a location where it is a great place to live and work. And part of that is education. Part of that is recreation, but the other big piece is people need a place to live. So with partnering with Maine Housing, with partnering with the town of Madison, I believe we're going to provide in 2 phases affordable housing up to 42 units for the local area. Like I said, I wasn't prepared to come up with this wonderful speech. Normally I write something down, but we're more than happy to answer any question. But at the end of the day, this is for Madison. If this works, we're looking to replicate this in Skowhegan. We've got projects in Biddeford, in Sanford, across the state, to really focus on the housing shortage in the area. I went to Skowhegan, graduated. I went to Bowdoin, graduated, and all of my young peers and friends moved away. I really want to provide an area that is attractive to not only stay, but maybe move to this area. And I believe housing is going to be sort of the target here in the next few years. So we appreciate it. We appreciate what Tim and the town, the select board, the planning board has allowed us to come up with. Thank the partners and our engineers and architects. And what we're going to provide is not only housing, but very attractive infill housing. We're using a space that originally housed a school, but these apartment buildings will fit with the natural landscape already in Madison. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Is there anyone who still wants to sign up and has not done so? Okay. All right, first on the list, Paula Nelson.
Oh, I didn't know it was first.
And
Forgot I did that. I just have 2 questions.
Sure.
What happens if you don't fully rent the first building? Like, this is in phases, so you're not going to start another building until you fully rent the first?
So the first, we're doing this in 2 phases for, the main reason is when the town acquired, well, they always had the property, but they took the existing buildings and just put them into the ground.
Yes.
So what are out there are called brownfield grants. The town has to own the property in order to qualify for the federal grants, in order to clean that space up. And the main housing program does 18 units at a time with their financing.
So those all have to be fully rented before you'll move on?
These two buildings are going up.
And is there any, like down the road, or say they're not filling up and they're not renting out quick enough, is there any way that these could convert to a Section 8 project? Like, can this project kind of
Right.
all make it?
So with the financing we have with Maine Housing, we basically have to own and operate this property in this rental program for affordable housing for 30 years.
30
If
years, okay.
if we don't, we have to give the subsidies back. So it's incentivizing keeping this property the way it is for
30 years.
45 actually with the subsidies. So no, we can't turn that. There are penalties not only from Maine Housing, but from a tax standpoint. If we were to sell this ahead of time, we would be taxed the full subsidy as ordinary income. So there's incentives to keep it the way it is.
Thank you. And because, for the benefit of anybody who's on Zoom and for recording purposes, I'm sorry I neglected to request you come forward so that our speaker could pick you up. So I don't know if you want to come forward and say anything or again or not.
No,
but
I'm good.
there's
I'm
something.
good. That's questions.
Yeah, no replay on that. Okay, next individual, Renee Chonier. Chonier.
Thank you.
Okay.
What I gave you here was just my notes from the things that I discovered from researching the local area. And I just wanted you to know when I said things where the information came from. So some of them may not make sense to you right away, but as I say what I have to say, they will make sense. I'm curious, I want to ask you a question. Where are you going to get these people in that income level from? Because I'm looking at the dynamics. If you looked at the numbers that I looked up, this area cannot support that rental. So where are these people going to come from, and how can you assure us that they exist and really will want to move to Madison, Maine?
Right.
Why will they want to come here, okay?
So I hope you understand that I wouldn't be here unless I thought that a $5 million project would work. I'm not here to...
That's not an answer. I'm asking you, have you actually researched it? Do you have numbers?
Well, the 2021 study from the housing study that Madison did, it was targeting these people that were 1 to 2 to 3 bedrooms, and it came up that it was 1 to 2 bedrooms with a median household income and X. We looked at census studies that looked at what the median household income was.
But did you look at the rental properties in those groups as they sit today and the rents that they're actually realistically drawing in?
Yes, if you look at a lot of the rents in the area that are subsidized Section 8, they're actually getting more than
I'm not asking about Section 8. I'm asking about the people you say are going to come live in this place. Do they exist here in Madison?
Yes.
Do you have proof that they're already paying that level of rent and can pay it and have the income to meet it? And how many of these 42 families that you have met and know all about actually are ready to move in?
Yeah, well, so just in response to that, the ACS data that we looked at.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, what?
Sounded like you said yes. Sounded like you said sir.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was referring to a set of data, census data, the ACS data, which is the data that we looked at. And 25% of households in Madison have $50,000 to $75,000 worth of household income.
But those aren't renters. Those are households where people are already living and don't need to rent. So they don't count because they're not looking for a place to rent. You have 29% of Madison is at or below poverty level. There's a statistic that doesn't read to me that you're going to be able to support that.
Well, and you know that is our challenge. Absolutely.
And that's a risk that we are taking as developers.
No, but we're taking it as a town because we're actually going to have to tolerate the increase in property values. People that do rent now are probably going to, if their rentals are gonna be charged at a higher rate, their taxes, because you're saying that that one bedroom is now worth $1,000. So some poor soul has been renting one for $600, now their house gets assessed, it's known that they have a rental property, one, it's a studio, oh, all studios in Madison now go for $1,000, now his taxes went up. I can't afford you to drive my taxes up over something that you can't assure me is real. And I
thank
don't,
you.
I looked at the numbers, you can look at this, I'll
Thank
borrow
you.
a
Your time
copy.
is up, please. Your time is up. Thank you very much. Okay, the next individual, Lori Jarvis. Is Lori
My
here?
question was already answered, because
Oh.
this cannot be converted into Section 8 and cannot be sold before 30, 45 years, so, okay.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Chris Roy,
I didn't have a question. I thought if I wanted to ask a question, I had to sign up, Mary.
you have a question?
No, I don't at this time. Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you. Scott Dion?
Sure.
I'm Scott Dion. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Go Lab. I've been part of the project for about 2.5 years. I'm actually a resident of Aroostook County, but I'm a renter in the area. So I'm down here about 2 to 3 days a week. And we will be hiring 120 employees over the next 3 to 5 years, but we're currently at 25 employees, and our employees are professionals who are going to have to work 2 to 3 days a week out of Madison, and they really have nowhere to stay. So they would be looking for opportunities like this.
So you're gonna be hiring from outside of the town?
We're trying to hire from within the town, but what we want to be able to do is not have people commute in and then leave, so that we can have people living here so that they can add to the services of the community. And, you know, really that's ideal for the development of the community. If you think about the forward thought that goes into workforce housing, we are looking for locations for Plant 2 across the United States, and the locations that we go to, they're having to bus in employees because the employees can't afford to work in those areas. And you know, you look at what's being done. You know, Salem, New Hampshire just announced a 74-unit workforce housing project to support manufacturing. If we don't have housing for people to work in these manufacturing businesses, then we're not going to have the foundational jobs that are going to help us grow all these additional services. And you know, for the elderly community, there's examples across the state, even in Aroostook County, in Caribou, Maine, for example, they took over an old school, turned it into housing for the elderly that's, you know, rented at a bit of a premium, not just low income. So
we don't have that elderly population with that income. Our elderly population, if you look at the statistics I just brought in.
Your time was over.
Yeah, and I think with just for example, I could tell you with the projects that are proposed for these 2 buildings, you know, we could easily right now with our workforce of 25 have 4 of those units just for Go Lab, and we're just starting our hiring ramp, and at the 4th quarter of this year, we'll really be hiring in earnest to fill that facility.
Interesting.
We've had a lot of younger people who are graduates from the University of Maine Maritime Academy, looking at our mission and what we're doing at Go Lab. We're creating a high-value composite. It's not paper, and you have to, you know, wear multiple hats in these positions. So we're attracting a bit of a younger demographic, and those folks can't.
I think your 3 minutes must be up by now.
I didn't hear the buzzer yet.
Thank you very much.
My sense is this has already been decided. Has this already been decided? No. My sense is that it has, and that it's all tying in. It's making sense now that this company is coming to town and they want housing. And they're
Ms.
providing
Nelson,
that.
your time is up. Okay, next individual, Megan, and I'm sorry, I cannot determine which one.
Megan Cottle.
Megan what?
Megan Cottle.
Thank you.
So I am a stay-at-home mom with 2 little kids right across the street from where this is going to happen. My kids play in that area all the time. All the neighborhood kids play in that area all the time. There's ice skating in the winter times, and it's just a really good place for the kids to play. On top of that, if this happens, yes, I understand that there will be a penalty if you change it to being Section 8 housing. You can still pay that penalty. Things can change. Things have changed before. Politics, whatever else, things can change. So maybe later on you pay that penalty because the houses aren't being filled, the rentals aren't being filled. And now we have low-income Section 8 housing all across the street from where my kids are growing up, from where a bunch of kids are growing up, and they have to deal with more crime, more drugs, more alcohol, more everything, more trouble, because that is what happens statistically. This is what happens when there's low income, when there is Section 8. I have friends who live in those type of areas. I have friends who live in that. So I'm not judging them, it's just a statistic. This is how it is. So I am concerned about that. I am concerned about my kids growing up and the kids in our neighborhood who I can speak for growing up, who enjoy how it is. We like how quiet our community is. I understand that people need housing. I understand there is a need for housing. I do understand that. The way that this is set up and the way that, let's talk about like the parking, for instance. 48 parking spots. If there's high income people who come, right? How many people do you know who own only one car, who's got a good amount of money? Not a lot of people. A lot of people have 2 cars. Especially me, there's always a truck and there's always a car. So where are they going to go? Well, they're going to park on the street. Things are going to get crowded up. Where are we going to park those people? Because it's 48, and then there's 42 houses and there's 48 parking spots. Where's everyone else going to go? So there's just some inconsistencies, and there's some concerns I have about my kids growing up in that area, and the fact that you can pay the penalty, and then and there is Section 8 housing there someday. You can't guarantee that that's not going to happen. You can't promise that. There's a percentage of a chance that things change, and that happens.
So, even though we might not live in Madison, it took me 7 minutes to drive here. I live in Norwich Walk. This area is important to me. My family has been part of this community for literally 11 decades. So I get that. I've got family that live in the neighborhood. My wife's grandmother lives across the street. I have employees that live in the area. These things matter to me. Can I write it on paper saying I promise you the world? Obviously not. But until I leave this earth, which I'm hoping is a long time from now, I am going to make sure that this is for affordable housing. This is not bringing in a low-income crowd, and you have to take my word for it. I mean, we did a lot of research on this. This has taken us a year to get us to this point. I would not be willing to risk $5 million on thinking that this program would not work the way this program is supposed to. We work with Maine Housing. We have calls with them every week to see how our application is, where the money's coming from. And this was not, I just woke up one morning and said, oh, I'm just going to throw up some housing in Madison. This is very calculated for me. I've just been very lucky that I've been working with Kara and Brian that know the nuts and bolts of all of the programs and the subsidies and whatnot. But what I'm honestly trying to provide is affordable housing to a community that I care about.
I understand. You have to not judge me for
my
family.
I get it.
There's
I get
concerns, there's valid concerns, there's some things that could happen. And
Totally.
it's my job to speak for the kids that, and the family.
And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Patricia Cornford?
My biggest question is, how did we land to Weston Ave? So when we think about the town of Madison and the property that the town owns in Madison, how did we land at Weston Ave that needs to be excavated before work can be started? When we got Madison Electric and a nice business park up the road that is empty. And there's a proper place for buildings like this would be right up to Madison Electric, right up into that whole area that would need all that extra work done to it. Was there discussions on location?
when I showed up to the table, it was presented to me from the town. I did not come up with the area.
So is there anybody from the town that can answer
Well,
that
I
question?
think it's in the housing study that was done where they selected, I think it was 3 different sites that were all walking distance, so people could live in town and walk.
But if they're making 40 to 70,000 and they have a parking space, they have a vehicle, so Madison electric to town is.
Nobody walks in the middle of winter in Madison.
Right.
End of story.
Well, not yet.
You have a nice walkable town, it's really great.
Well, so nobody has the answer to that question. The town decided on Western Ave instead of other parcels.
So I believe for about 10, how long has the school been torn down?
Probably 15, 20 years.
I think for 15 or 20 years, Madison kept looking at that space for affordable housing, and they looked at projects kind of like Bill Perkins has by the high school, because it just made sense. It's called infilling. I've been learning all this stuff too. Infill housing. You take what already was pretty much existing there with traffic pattern, and you put the housing where it's walkable.
Was there a discussion on other, there's tons of vacant homes in the town of Madison, tons of property. So Madison wants to be a part of the real estate, and
Right.
they could buy up a ton of property
Right.
that's vacant and sitting there for years and
Right.
years and years.
I think the biggest thing there is the town owned this property was getting $0 on taxes. All the other properties were paying taxes technically, so this is going to, the first project will be $10,000 or $20,000 a year to the town, upwards of $80,000 to $100,000 once this project is done. So it's taking a vacant lot, getting nothing on the tax rolls, and then trying to bring some taxes into the town.
The town manager, Tim Curtis, the town manager, was also in discussion with the selectmen. So this project was discussed with the selectmen before it came to us.
All right, thank you.
Am I correct in that?
Well, and I think as Sam alluded to also, that the housing study that Sam references preceded, the work that we did as well. To your question as to whether there was a process in terms of how
Yeah,
the site was
I mean,
selected.
we also own a bunch of, Madison does for down on Preble Ave as well, and that's town-owned land that they're not, maybe they get it from, I don't know if they're paying taxes, they get tax money for that, maybe the school district taxes. And I just think that there could be a much better location for this, and we could keep that area for a play area for children. It's so important. We don't have enough for our kids in this town.
Are you talking about Preble Ave, like where the ball fields are?
Right, I'm
So
assuming
you're thinking
that's.
that we should get rid of the ball fields?
No, I'm just assuming it's town-owned land, it's town-owned money. I don't know how far back they own to the woods. I know that's a long road.
I think the goal was to keep this in town. You really would have to talk with Tim Curtis and the selectmen about the reasoning for those 3 sections that were, those 3 sites and how those were determined.
I think my other question would be that as far as the parking goes, right, not enough spots, not enough parking for those kind of buildings and that kind of, so where are they gonna park?
In the street like you do, Patricia.
Well, wouldn't that be a hassle with everybody doing it, huh?
I mean, what's the difference?
You don't have a line? Okay, thank you. Time is up, and we'll move on to Chris Dunphy. Thank you for coming forward, so our speakers can
Hey, you bet.
pick up.
A lot of my concerns piggyback the other concerns I heard. You're taking federal money. You're bound by federal regulation. Therefore, when the federal government says you're housing these people, guess what? We're housing those people. That's how it is. You talk about you wouldn't risk $5 million. Well, subsidized money, you're playing with somebody else's money. Why won't you risk it? Subsidized. So, and you talk about housing for the, you know what? I just bought a crappy house. I got no subsidies, and I rebuilt it. So if the people from that place want to purchase properties in town, there's plenty of them, fix them up like everybody else did, right? Then I think that's a phenomenal idea. Obviously, you talk about walking distance, right? Apparently, you've never walked this street because it's hard to even get the kids to school on Weston Ave safely in the wintertime. There are school buses, there's traffic piled up everywhere, and now you're going to add 40 cars to this flow of traffic that's running through town. That absolutely makes no sense when, like Patty said, there's a business park up there that is a perfect place with a great view that people would be much happier to rent than a place right in town with no yard and no anything because you've taken the only lawn now and you've wiped it into a building. So
just,
I don't believe a lot of what you people are saying.
So the you people thing, I mean,
I'm sorry, and you say you're gonna, everybody on this list of people hired already is from not here. So you're really helping us out.
All of the local.
Bet you got a beautiful place in Norwich Walk.
Okay. So, just for the record, the town came to us.
Well, the town was wrong to come to you with that site.
But don't. And
I apologize. I apologize. This town,
because the town
housing
said,
is
I've
a
got
great idea.
this problem.
Housing is a great idea. You should put it in a way more intelligent spot than an old school that's got lead and asbestos and everything else buried in the ground under it. It makes no sense. Well, this town is not ready for that type of infrastructure dumped into the middle of it like that. There's a lot of other things that need to happen before that's going to work. And it's not going to work. She is 100% right. It is not going to work. I'm sorry. You might fill a few of the places, and then when the rest of them sit empty for a few months and you're not paying your bills, or not your bills, the government's bills, then it's going to end up having to go to federal housing.
Thank you. Daxton Winchester.
Okay, so I wanted to state about two different things. I do currently live in Madison. I've lived here my whole life, and I recently have moved out and got my own apartment. Right now, I'm paying about $1,000 already for an apartment that's practically a studio apartment. It has a space that's not even a bedroom. Every door is about, I think, about 40 feet wide, and it has no doors on it. We got no yard, and we just have a spot for one car. So practically what I'm saying is I honestly encourage you, I wish we could pay, instead of what we're paying now, I wish we pay $1,000 for what you are given with the necessities that you're trying to provide. I do understand the 2 cars. I once had 2 cars. It got totaled this winter, but even though we were able to find a different area to park, it wasn't on the side of the street. It was never in people's way. It was always off on a different parking lot. So right now, $1,000 for basically what you're going to provide, but not as much. The area is, the heating doesn't work. So all winter we had about 40-degree weather. We had 3 blankets on. There was no heat in half of it. The landlord never fixed it. We called multiple times. We never got it fixed, and we're still paying that $1,000 price, when that price is meant to be upkept for basically the same thing.
But do you make $40,000 a year?
2 jobs, roughly around there.
You have to make at least that to even get in the door.
I do
Right?
2 different jobs, and I make $17 an hour on one job and $15 an hour on the other job.
Well, to clarify, if he came to us, we wouldn't turn him away. We can't rent it to someone who makes more than that now. But if we're providing a better substitute at the same rate he's paying now, we wouldn't turn him away.
And I
That was
understand
the- that was anything.
It's a cap. We can't.
I read it was a minimum of 40,000 to even get
Cap on
in.
the max, but not the minimum.
Correct.
Yeah.
They can mean if it's nothing, you would accept it.
Well, that's, I mean, I still.
If we think they can pay.
And again, it's, this is honest, but, so, this is like, I think this story is the type of story we'd like to address, I have to be honest. So, there is a level of trust, like Sam said, but,
You can't make more than 40,000? Is that what you just said?
if you're a single person
Daxton, do you have anything more you'd like
So
to say?
if you're a single person household, that is the.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, just in case, is there anyone else who would like to take an opportunity to speak? He did not sign up.
Just gonna check on the Zoom just to make sure anyone.
Sure.
Right, not what I'm seeing.
Okay. Okay.
I
Yes.
have a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
What does a project like this do to existing property values around it? Like, is the property value of my house in the neighborhood going to decrease if I want to sell and get out before I have all these new neighbors? Is it a problem now?
Good question.
So you're worried about your property values going down or up?
Going down? Like, is somebody
I think
gonna
there's
wanna
both
buy my
concerns.
house? Is somebody gonna wanna buy my house when they know that there's gonna be 5 buildings, where
Right.
there's nice little?
Well, the beauty is they're
On the
very
quiet
attractive
side.
buildings.
No.
Yeah, so
It's very attractive someplace bigger. I think it's a too small of an area
Right.
to cram that many. There's not that many people living on my whole entire street.
Right.
And there's noise and there's different things that happen. So I don't want that many new neighbors all at one time. So if you're gonna do that, I probably am going to want to get out before that starts to happen. And I'm a property owner here in Madison.
Sure.
Who isn't gonna wanna be a property owner next to that. And I understand all of the reasons why. I think it's important to address the needs, but I just think that the location is 100% wrong. And it's not fair, not to you guys, but it is not fair of our selectmen, planning board, whoever, to just sort of do this for all of this time and not make it known to any of the people that are living around it. Like, we just had a big town meeting. I don't remember it coming up at that meeting at all. We were just kind of blindsided by it. And I think that's wrong.
I would just add, in terms of the scale.
Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
I was just gonna sort of address, I think, part of the concern, but the size of this building is 30 feet wide, which is basically the size of a single family home. And from the front, it's got one door, and so you might walk by this building and think it's a single family house because it's scaled to fit in with that context. And having lived in neighborhoods that have apartment buildings that look like houses, oftentimes if you don't know, you don't hear more noise because there's more people in it. And oftentimes you don't know how many people are even living in these buildings until you look at the meters and you can count them. But aside from that, you can be next to buildings that have 8 units or 20 units and you might think it's, a 1 family or 2 family. So I understand there's a little bit of unknown and fear associated with it, but the intent was to try to make it fit in with a residential neighborhood, just like you never would have looked at an industrial park or a business park, because they are meant to be like neighborhood scale houses that fit in with the neighborhood and add value to the neighborhood by bringing more residents who want to be, participate in your neighborhood and might be your friends. And
Do you have another neighborhood that has that you can, that we could drive through and see?
I mean, it's modeled off of buildings that exist in Maine. And we haven't built this one, but I could point to others that I have photographs of that look very much like this, and that we created this type off of buildings you can find in Maine that have that scale.
That have that same number of people living in them?
I mean, there's so many buildings that have multiple apartments, and again,
In
you would
cities,
never.
in cities.
No, in towns too. There's lots of apartment buildings in towns.
Okay.
It's true.
All righty, thank you very much. Are there any other individuals who have not spoken? Excuse me, yes.
I did not make the list, but my question is, the town piece of property, number 1, who deemed it for the project? Did the town selectmen all agree on it? Or did it wasn't brought to a vote for the people, for the town property to be sold or used? The other thing is the infrastructure in the town of Madison. We've already kind of touched on that. The water supply, the sanitation. I live on the corner of Bean Street and Weston Avenue, which is kitty corner from where this place is. And it just got the fire hydrant replaced a week ago. And it had been missing for 6 months. Are these structures sprinkled? Is it fire resistant construction?
Yes. So we,
Will the town fire department's going to be responsible for it? And we have a call force and have a problem with manning. So, we're talking 32 more units, 32 more families moving in on the street. Is the water supply going to handle it? Is the sanitation going to handle it? Is the fire department going to be able to cover it? And we've already talked about structures already here in town that are housing people. And we just heard a young man turn around and say he was paying rent equivalent to what we're talking about in this. Those people move out of the structures that they're in now. Who's going to move into the ones that privately owned? Who's going to fill that gap? Are those buildings going to go delinquent? And then we have a bunch of more empty vacant buildings in the town of Madison? Yep. Because they move into this? It's all questions that need to be answered. And as far as the planning board goes, I figured the water supply, the sanitation, the electrical, the gas, to heat the place, all this should have been addressed before we turned around and went to planning.
so we do have letters from the sanitation district, the water district, the fire, all saying that this will not add undue cost or volume to the existing system.
If the buildings are sprinkled, I understand it. That does not fall back onto the water supply in the town of Madison because it's 24-hour, 365 days. There's fire protection there.
Right.
Okay.
But like I said, we did go through those channels and ask those questions ahead of time.
It's
part of the planning.
It's
It's
part
a planning
of
process.
of the people here in town, or did you go outside?
No,
Because our water district is run by somebody that's not in town.
Right, well, we had to use what was provided to us, so we talked to Anson Madison Water District, sanitation,
Okay.
and whatnot. Yeah, that's part of the planning board process, to make sure.
Yeah, I know it is.
And the other thing on population that's, I think, just worthy to note is that Maine's on the front end of population influx, like we haven't seen because of combination of COVID, climate migration. People are coming to Maine. There's housing needs at every income level. And if we don't start building housing in our town centers where we used to have more people living, before sort of the period of decline that happened when we lost a lot of jobs, we're not going to be able to house our own people.
And I
because there's
understand
people
that. I
coming
understand
from
that.
the
I'll go
state
back to
and
that
driving
lady's
to
question
the
right over there. There's private property around the town of Madison
Yep.
that's for sale. And it's not town property. We wouldn't be subsidizing that. And if that was the case, we wouldn't have a word to say about it because it'd be private industry doing it.
Exactly.
And HB Timber Pro has a great big brick building there on the river frontage that certainly could be converted over to housing needs if it's not going to be used as part of the facility.
Yeah, we currently lease that from the electric company, but
Should purchase it.
it would be like purchasing I mean, it is, but it needs a ton of work.
And this doesn't?
As far as new construction, like I've remodeled, I've been in the lumber and building materials industry.
I've
for
restored old
20
buildings
years.
just like that.
Excuse me, you have, if you wish to speak, you've already spoken. This time is for individuals who have not spoken.
Sir, can we just get your name for the record if you didn't sign? Can we get your name for the record if you didn't
Yes,
sign?
Bob Neiman.
Thank you. Yeah, got it, Mary.
Thank you.
And I think it's very noble that timber is taken and coming to town. And I understand their business platform, but we also had Madison Paper here, and there wasn't all that many employees of Madison Paper that lived in the town of Madison. There was probably close to 20% of the people, and the rest of them lived somewhere else. So,
Ultimately, that's what we're trying to change, and the idea of these other properties being available, so if we talk, this is not a federal subsidy. I use subsidy. It is a Maine, so the governor came out with $20 million to go towards affordable housing. Maine Housing, which is quasi-government, came up with $17 million. They basically are a bank for this. These are not federal subsidies. This is all state of Maine it's loans.
Everything is a loan.
Everything is a loan. This is not free money by any means. So if they are to continue these programs, we can look at other properties, because we're looking at properties in Skowhegan, Rumford, Sanford, all around, to rehab existing properties, because they offer financing for those as well. So this is the project that was presented to us, and we're trying to make what makes the most sense with each piece envisioned. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question. I have a question.
Yes, just a moment. I have the timer going. Okay. Yes.
I'd just like to know, is it the town of Madison that is going to approve this, or is it just the planning board that's going to say, okay? And when does that happen?
When did what happen?
When to plan to go with this? Is that going to be presented to the town in a vote, and we vote as a town?
No.
It's
This
just the
is-
planning board.
Right, this is a site review. It has already been through the, like I said, Tim Curtis has already spoken with, excuse me.
So this is a waste of time.
Everybody, hang on a minute, let her, I can't hear. Sorry.
This project was brought to us. The planning board has to follow the ordinance. There's a whole process here. We have to follow the steps in that process in order to approve or disapprove this project. And we have been working on this for, what, we had 2 months ago, maybe, a month ago?
Yeah, this has
we
been
had
a 6 months process to do all of this.
Right, was introduced, but we did not actually,
Right.
planning board did not have any work to do until May, or excuse me, June, when you did the pre-application. So this was already discussed between Tim Curtis and the selectmen, and there was this whole process before it came to us. And so now we have to follow the ordinance and go through those steps to make sure that they meet all of the requirements of the ordinance before it can be approved.
What was the point of us all coming and having a say in it? Did we really not have a say? Was this just for show? Or can we actually have some influence on asking you, as taxpayers of the town, asking you as our employees, to please do the job of saying no?
You raised questions that were answered, that we may address during the course of our review here, all right? And so you brought forth your concerns, and that's important to hear. Okay, but again, we have to follow the ordinance. No matter how we personally feel, we have to follow what is set down.
So no matter what we said, you were already going to go forward with this?
We haven't voted yet, we're not there. We have not.
Well, that's what
completed
I'm
the
asking.
process.
Is the concern of the entire town enough to make you concerned enough to say no? Do you have the right to say no at this point?
Not at this point, not right now, we can't. We have to go through the steps to see.
So what would you base your no on? Would you be able to base it on what we have all said?
We will base it on the standards that have to be met in order for this project to go forward.
So that's the only thing that you're basing it on?
Right.
You're not actually basing it on anything that...
None of these
Some of you
concerns here
brought up-
tonight?
Some of you brought up other concerns that are part of that as well. So, we'll be looking at those. Yes?
I missed it. Was there a town vote when Perkins put in his buildings out by the school?
No, there was not.
So
This all goes through site review. Every time there's,
Private property, you can do anything you want.
every
This is all of our
time, excuse
We own
me,
it.
We own this.
and I don't see half of you there volunteering on the ice skating or anything else. I was trying to get my son to do ice rink.
what happens for any of these, whenever there's development in the town, it does come to the planning board. Perkins had to come to us. Okay, if there's any kind of building that's going on, it has to go through us, unless the code enforcement, unless it's something that the code enforcement officer can handle on his or her, own abilities or what have you, whatever falls under his purview.
I have another question.
Yes.
We own Weston Avenue as a town. So are they renting, are we getting paid rent? Is that, or are they gonna buy the property from us? How
What do we get out of it?
Would you like to answer that?
You know, is it?
You're
like-
giving us the property to develop, and then you'll be able to get tax revenue in the future. Because each building's gonna be valued at X, and then your mill rate is 19 something. So you'll be, instead of having a vacant lot earning nothing, you'll have a privately owned lot earning between $10,000 and $100,000 depending on
But
what
the
phase
taxes
we're
come
in.
from who?
The what?
The taxes come from who?
From us.
Me. Why pay them?
You pay it. Because you're the property manager.
Yes, owners.
So in other words, we lose Weston Avenue completely.
Yeah, we just.
That's their
Never,
purchase,
will never
the
be used by the
purchase of
town for
property.
anything else ever again.
Besides the $100,000 a year in taxes.
Right.
But is that the same amount that those 45 families would be paying if they individually bought homes around here? No, it's probably
They're
far
not
less.
coming unless this gets built.
You don't know that.
Okay, we need to move on then, and,
There's one more
one
coming.
more
I thought he
question.
said they were definitely coming.
Hold on,
He
yeah,
said
one
I
question
didn't
over here.
decide.
Okay, I see 2 hands. I thought I saw 2 hands.
No, I was pointing at him.
Right, I think I saw
So-
3 hands. Okay, please give your names because I haven't
My
gotten
name is
everyone.
Brandon Fenton.
I'm
I live
sorry?
on Houghton Avenue.
What is your
Houghton-
name?
Yeah, Brandon Fenton. 2 questions. One, will this increase our property taxes at all? By bringing in more property, will everything get reassessed? And 2, are we going to increase the police force and actually get a police force back in the town?
These are all like selectmen questions. We're just not planning board. You look at the ordinances. If it says that you need to have a rail or something, we got to make sure that there's a rail in on there, and then the code enforcement officer checks to make sure the rail is put. You know, it's all laid out and all in the book, and they have to meet everything, and that's why we've been reviewing everything. We've been going through all this paperwork, make sure everything's in the ordinance. So much is
For the safety of the people in the community would be an ordinance.
we're just the planning board. We just make sure that they're building stuff within the law and they're doing the stuff within the ordinance. They're using the right material and they're building stuff. And whether you're building a house, a garage, a business, apartment building, that's all we look at. We just look at, make sure they're building the stuff right in the ordinance. The state ordinance and the local ordinance. And every year we look at it and we review the ordinance and we update it.
And the town votes on the ordinance.
And that's what we do. So much as all this police force and all this other stuff, that's all selectmen stuff. We have nothing to do with the police force.
When do we get to talk to them then? Do we get a meeting with
You
them?
can have, at any point, you can meet with the selectmen. Those are open meetings.
Who do we call to
So-
make that meeting appointment?
Where's
No,
the vote?
you just show, the meetings are twice a month.
Every Monday and Tuesday, every other week, it's at 6:30. You can usually pass by here. There's always cars, there's always lights, and then you can always check the town office if you want to know the dates. And if you want to get more information and you're not at the meeting, Channel 11 always has a recording, and it's always posted on the Somerset Abbey YouTube channel. And you
I
can
have a
get-
question.
Excellent.
Was
Thank
this
you, you're
sale
very
of-
informative, I appreciate that, thanks.
Was the sale of this property done at a town meeting?
It was confirmed on the meeting after the big meeting. It was
So,
brought up.
so it was done in private?
No, it was on an open meeting. There were people
At a
there.
selectman
You
meeting?
read the minutes of the meeting, yes.
Okay.
None of the selectmen meeting.
All right.
If you
Yeah,
give the town office
95% of your frustration in this room should be directed to your town manager and your town.
You're 100%
Yes.
And I apologize.
Why didn't we
know that was happening?
One person at a time.
People,
It's not.
relax.
Taking your frustrations out
Okay.
on somebody that's just come to town to develop something, and we should have been, you guys should have been at the select meeting 2 months ago about the sale of the purchase.
Can I say something? Okay, I saw Noel.
Yeah, I'm Noelle Page. I'm just curious of something of this importance and of this magnitude, why there isn't somebody here
from the select board and possibly the town manager.
Okay, the town manager is usually at the meeting, but he has gone on vacation.
Okay.
So that's why he was not able to be here tonight. And the selectmen don't come to our meetings.
But I mean, there's quite a number of people.
Well, this goes through this is site review, it goes through site review, which again is the ordinance, and it's the same process that we have followed for every piece of development in this town. Okay, so there's nothing new about this, and I understand that Tim Curtis did send out letters a few weeks ago, I think it was in early June, to the abutters. So, and he only received one phone call from those letters that went out, and then he sent out another one. So, excuse me, go ahead, Robin Turk.
Well, I just wanted to say that if you really want to know when the selectmen meetings are, make sure the town office has your emails. Every time there's a meeting, the minutes from the past meeting and the agenda for the upcoming meeting go out in an email. So you'll know, even if you miss it, you'll know by reading the minutes what's going on.
Thank you, good idea.
And you also, through that same email, you also get notification of the school board meetings.
Yes.
And the planning board meetings that are going on too. So any notices that go out, if you're on that mailing list, you'll get those notices. All right, was there one more question back here? I thought I saw another hand earlier. No? Okay, thank you very much.
Mary, the only other thing, there was the one email that we got sent through. Did you receive that? Just wanting to be on the record for the public hearing from Toby Solberg. I guess I can read it.
Yeah, would you please, because I'm
sure.
not familiar with that one.
My opinion is that I don't want this project to go forward. I can think of a number of empty homes in town already. 2 of them are on or near my street. If the town wants to have something built on the property, I'd suggest a community centre would be a much better idea, and it is something that is needed in the community. The building could have a couple of indoor basketball courts, floor hockey, synthetic ice hockey rink, a weight room, and a good-sized room that could be rented out for the day or larger gatherings. Perhaps someone could approach the Alphons for funding. Sincerely, Toby Solberg, 12 Rowell Street, Madison, Maine. So we received that correspondence to go on the public hearing as well.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and give the board, as we go through this, if the board members have any further questions or clarification, we'll do that. Thank you. You are encouraged to stay for the continuation and consideration of this. All right. Okay, there were some, before we go on, Randy, you had a question?
I do have a question. How much community engagement did you guys do beforehand? Because that's what I'm sort of hearing is everybody's taken by surprise by this. Were you able to reach out to the neighborhood and find out anything before you
I guess from our perspective, we had the town come to me first, and then I came to the partners, and I thought that probably that had already been done. I mean, I've been talking with, we had a Build Maine conference in Skowhegan where 300 or 400 developers came to the area, and they were all focused on communities working with private developers on working on affordable housing. So obviously I probably am coming at this at a different perspective, but I was thinking that maybe we would have more positive engagement on a real problem in this area, and this project would be adding to the taxes, adding to bringing good people to the area, probably mitigating crime, adding tax value base. I mean, it hit everything I look at as a community developer, as I look at in Skowhegan, and I mean, we've got 100+ developments across the state of Maine, and I've never, worked so hard on a project like this, where I'm looking at it more from a community base than a development and investment base.
I think the other thing too is that the 4 Main report, my understanding of that process is that a lot of people were brought into that process to identify what the housing needs were, where the local community wanted to target the housing. And so we relied on that report quite a bit as guidance, because that was done here, but also in a number of other communities in Maine. And I knew the project manager for that process, and it just seemed like that was also an open process where people from all different parts of the community were brought in to help figure out how to address the housing crisis. So it seemed like there was a lot of legwork already done here, and the fact that you guys have been trying to find a development for the site for such a long time. So all of those things kind of led us to where we are.
Well, I do agree with that, but I was also at that conference, and the first speaker, it seemed like her big point was give the neighborhood a reason to have you there. And I'm not sure you've accomplished that, which concerns me. But I would like to give you a chance to give them a chance, or to give you guys a chance to prove why you should be there. I'm not sure you've done that.
I don't know
seems
how
like
much
you're
more
close.
I can say about my community engagement and being part. I mean, I am a taxpayer of Madison. I've been a taxpayer of Madison. My family's been a taxpayer of Madison for 60 years. I live in Norridgewock. It's not that far away. It's similar demographic. I spend all my time between Skowhegan and Farmington across the state, trying to help rural development. This project fits the needs of the community.
I mean, I think one of the things too that, when I think of housing projects that tend to make people angry, I think of like the 40-unit apartment building that's dropped in with a gigantic parking lot that kind of takes over the neighborhood and changes the character of it. I think part of what we were trying to do to give back, to fit in, was to create a scale of project that hasn't happened in Maine in a really long time, because it's really, really hard to do small scale development and make it pencil. And so part of what we were trying to do with this project was to demonstrate that it is possible to do well-designed infill projects made up of small buildings that don't overwhelm and change the character of a neighborhood, that can fit in seamlessly and kind of celebrate the fabric of the neighborhoods that's there. So that's, I think, the part we were trying to do. It's not trying to be flashy, but it's trying to just fit in. And that sounds kind of basic, but when you look at new development that's typically done, it doesn't fit in, and typically it makes people angry. So that's what we were really trying to accomplish, I think, with the scale of this and the fact that it is broken up into smaller buildings.
Mary.
Excuse me, sir. You asked why we were surprised, and I'll just speak for my husband and I. We didn't get a notice at all. This is the first notice we got was this planning meeting, and I think probably a lot of the people who were frustrated because it happened to them too. We didn't get a notice. This is the first notice we got. We didn't get a notice about the selectmen, so that's, I think, that's to answer your question. We didn't get a notice. We didn't know.
Okay.
But were you
Are
looking
you
for a
in a
notice?
butter to the property though?
Yes.
Yes.
Mary.
So, okay.
But it's not open.
Discretion of the chair. It's just discretion of the chair who talks now.
Okay. I was writing something down.
I think Jack's trying to look for that.
Yes, John.
I'm Jack Ducharme, currently the representative, was on the Board of Selectmen, not when this project was put forth, but I was on the Board of Selectmen when we did the 4 Main housing study. And my question for you is,
Not right now.
does your board have that study? Because if you don't have that study and you look at this project, then you're missing a big piece of what went into this development. I'm appalled that you don't have a copy of that study. Because that study was pretty comprehensive. We had a fair amount of people involved in it. It was funded by the state of Maine, supported by the legislature, and it was really comprehensive, and it really looked at a number of sites around town and chose a site. We looked at the report looks at both private sites, privately owned sites, as well as publicly owned sites, and it looks at them with the eye to ease of development, proximity to services, and how that was going to best fit within the community. And as a result of that study, Weston Avenue rose to the top of that list. So if you don't have that study, Tim has many copies that he can be certain to give you. And I would, before you make your final decision, I'd look at that report.
Thank you.
I'll admit that I have that study and I've seen it.
All right, do any members have any further questions at this time? Okay.
My only statement would be that we follow the ordinance. Whatever's in the ordinance, it's in black and white. That's what we go by. Point blank.
That's what we're legally bound to do.
It's like you go to court of law, they follow the law, whether they want to do it or not, but
Whether I like it or not like it, it doesn't matter. What's in black and white, what the townspeople, you people, us people, voted on, that's what we gotta go by. Complaining about stuff doesn't change anything
Well, I think a lot of
until,
changes
ma'am,
not-
you all be
You
quiet.
do not have the floor.
I'm just saying I didn't know
You do
that.
not have the floor.
I didn't know that that was
Excuse
the
me,
case.
you do not have the floor.
Until the people, we the people, change ordinances, we have to go by what's black and white. That's it. That's it.
the town votes on it, the people vote on it. We have a town meeting every year, and everyone comes in, we vote on stuff like this. We present it, the state comes down, says this is what you need to do, we look at it, we put it all together, we bring it to the town, and you guys vote on it. You vote on it. I don't. Unless I'm in the meeting, I vote on it. But all this stuff is here.
Well, I apologize for taking your time because I didn't realize that that was all that you were going to do here tonight. I thought that there was going to be an opportunity for the town, and I think you're right, I think we should have gone to the selectmen's meeting. That's the place, and I think there should be a special selectmen's meeting called.
Okay, I'm going to
I
have to interrupt you,
misunderstood.
ma'am, because you have not been recognized to speak. And the public hearing is over now. This is time for the board to do its work. Thank you. All right, so we have, at this meeting, we were to have the signed purchase and sale agreement that was received by the town on July 1, 2022. And that was attached. And I did see that here somewhere. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, is everyone in agreement that that is complete?
Yep.
All right. Okay, the next item. Okay, they withdrew the request regarding the driveway standard, and of course we cannot grant waivers anyway. There was a signed agreement with the town for the parking, and that was received on July 1, 2022. And so therefore that was completed, and that was attached, I believe. I don't see that in this packet.
I think we have an additional site plan and the flow of the potential traffic around, if that's what it
we
were. Yeah.
do have that, I was looking for
Yeah.
that.
Circulation
the
plan.
agreement
Yeah.
that was signed with the town.
And we also, we do have the
Okay,
agreement
there it
signed
is.
with
Thank you.
about the parking.
Okay. So was that printed on the back?
No,
Something here?
just towards the back of the packet.
Like 22.
Oh, there it is. Got it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we do have that, and that has been completed. Okay. So that completes section SR3, excuse me, SR2, section SR3. There was, a new map has been provided. So, we have completed Part A. Part B, a boundary outline with dimensions and lot area in relation to surrounding streets, walls, and adjoining land uses. Has that been completed?
I've lost track of where you are.
We're on SR3, item B. That is page 5.
I do have a question on the site map. On top center, Paul Bruno's, it shows a driveway that's going to be blocked off. Is there plans to accommodate for that, or?
Yes, go ahead.
They would never had access to that. They put their own driveway in beside it last year after many years of convincing them they needed to do it. When they required that property, it was in agreement, they wouldn't put their own access in. So it really has nothing to do with this property.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Are we good with the boundary outline?
Yeah.
Okay. That is completed. All right, names and addresses of present landowners and abutting landowners.
I saw that in there.
Yes, all the abutters on the same side of the street have the address.
Pardon?
All the abutters on the same side of the street have the address here. And the names for the abutters on the opposite side of the streets are here.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the addresses. Are these supposed to be the maps, the site maps that we're looking at?
We have the site map, and we also have the updated survey, which indicates the direct abutters to that block.
If we do not have,
So Joel, this is John Whitten here. We talked with Tim, and there's a full abutters list with the addresses in the application, and so he indicated to us that the direct abutters on the same side of the street could have the addresses shown on the plan, and the other ones would be represented by that list that's in the application. I guess, you know, if the board wants more addresses on the plan, we could certainly add those as easily as a condition of approval, if appropriate.
so it is only the direct abutters, those two properties only. What is the favor of the board?
I don't see where the addresses are necessary. However, to appease everybody, I think all the addresses should be on there.
Brett?
Yeah, I agree.
Mark?
That's fine.
To add all the addresses?
Yeah.
Randy? Okay. So we will need to have a complete map with all of the addresses of all of the abutters for approval. Okay. All right, item D, locations of existing buildings and other structures, fire hydrants, streetlights, utility poles, underground water and sewer facilities, existing trees greater than 10 inches in diameter, and other natural landscape features.
Maybe we could have those pointed out.
They're awful small. I see.
Yeah, we're used to looking
So-
at much larger maps here. This is quite
Yeah,
small.
those plans, are originally, they're supposed to be printed on 24 by 36 plans to be completely readable, but there's in-street sewer on Thomas and John and Weston. There's water on John and Weston. There's a hydrant right across from Building 2 on the other side of Western Avenue. There's actually another hydrant up Thomas Street that would be off the page. There are catch basins and piping at the corner of Thomas and Weston. And there are catch basins at the corner of John and Weston as well. Various drainage manholes along Weston that connect those all together. There's indication of overhead power lines, and all utility poles are located. All of this is based on just site walking and Google Street Views to figure it out. We don't have all the inverts and stuff yet. That would be more of a construction level information gathering piece. But that's what we show for the utilities on the site, and we do show proposed connections for the sewer and the water on the plan. And power, yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Randy? Are you still looking?
Which one's power? Is that the UGU?
That's the underground,
Yeah.
underground utility line, UGU. Yeah, but I believe that is the power that comes off the pole in the middle of John Street there. Proposed UG underground utility service.
Right, and the lines that say OHU, that will be overhead utilities. That's the existing wires and poles along the street lines.
Boy, that is really small font.
It is,
I
yeah.
don't see it.
I think in the future we should have bigger maps. Are you good to go?
At least I didn't.
Okay, alrighty. All right, preliminary design drawings of site plans, floor plans, elevations in sufficient detail. Oh wait, that was already completed, skip that. Location and dimension of all proposed buildings and private and public utilities. That was just answered. Okay, going down to item I, location and accurate dimensions of streets, width of pavement, parking, loading, and associated curbing.
Where are you, Mary?
Item
F.
No, I.
Aye. Item I.
SR3I, page 5.
I see, yeah.
G and H are completed. Because they added they have the parking spaces in there.
Yeah, so we have notes indicating that the proposed spaces are 9 feet by 18 feet. The parking stalls, those are dimensioned. The minimum aisle width of 20 feet is dimensioned right near building 1 in the parking area. And then everything else is drawn to scale for the existing road widths, all the way around the property.
Randy?
I think I've got a question about the walkways.
Okay.
Are they gonna have to walk over cars to get to those? Or is there a space for them to walk without hitting the grass?
Karen, can you answer that?
I mean, it looks like the walkways touch the parking area. Are you wondering if there's an additional sidewalk on the eastern side of the buildings?
No, I think he's asking if the walkways connect. Like
It
if
seems
there's
like you have to go through cars to get to some of the walkways.
Got a parking spot. He's asking, it looks like from the map, it looks like the walkways end at the pavement where the parking stalls are.
Right.
And there is no way to access. People have to walk between cars to get out into the parking area and walk up to their own vehicle.
I mean, isn't that the way parking lots usually work, is that you walk between the cars? Or is there a standard you don't know about?
Is there a sidewalk along between the grass and the parking area?
Not
So that
according to
people could
these.
easily access their vehicles without having to go out into the parking area?
Or on the
I think
grass.
you would just
Or
walk,
onto the grass?
walk into the parking lot.
Maybe we can probably stripe it in a way
The sidewalk shows that it ends right at the front of a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't bode well with me.
No.
You want someone walking across your vehicle to get to theirs? It just doesn't look right.
So basically, you're suggesting a space between the vehicles where the walkway comes out?
Like if you put
He's
a cars on
thinking
the
like
stripe to allow room on the pavement in front. Is that?
Is that what you
Yeah, like a walkway in front of the,
Yeah, okay.
in front of the cars.
We can make a note of that. Striping, a horizontal stripe in front of the cars so that there's pavement to
So
walk
it's like
along
a
in front of the
sidewalk
cars.
in front of the.
Okay, yeah.
In front of the cars, not between, like
Right.
where the...
Yeah, so there's an additional space between the grass and the front of the cars, like a pedestrian width. If we stripe it so that there's a width of pavement there.
Yeah.
I think that, does that
To make it
address your
easier
question?
to access the walkway.
Without walking across the grass to get to your
Right.
car.
Right, so you could walk horizontally along the front of the car
Correct.
and walk
Yes.
into your car?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Now, how would that impact your parking spaces or the driveway, if you were to do
I
that?
think we'll just have to take that away as a comment and talk to our civil engineers about that, but I understand what you're saying, which is like a horizontal right of way, basically, so that you don't have to walk out into the traffic flow and then move horizontally to get to your car. You could walk in front of the parked cars
Correct.
to get to your car.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be a safety feature
Yeah, we can,
there, and especially in the wintertime, because people aren't going to be able to walk in the grass in the winter.
sure, we'll take that back to our civil engineers and discuss that.
And possibly also if you have someone with a wheelchair. How
So
easy would it?
with between the vehicles? Okay, yeah, so I mean, we'll accommodate,
Well, we have
parking.
handicaps.
We have handicap parking spaces, but
Yeah, I saw
we'll
that.
account for that.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you want them to add a walkway to access the vehicles?
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Letter J, identification and boundaries of any shoreline zoning districts affecting the property. That is not applicable, there are no shoreline zoning there, to my knowledge. It says see site map, why would it say see site map?
Dam breaks.
Just to say that there's none.
Okay, and the signature block has been added. Okay. Yep. You will need to write small. Okay, SR4. So before we move on to SR3, SR4, I mean, we have two items that will need to be addressed prior to full approval. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, SR4. Signatures, the attached letter from the Madison Water District as to the conditions under which the district will supply water and approval of the size and location of mains, valves, and hydrants proposed. That letter is attached. Oh, actually, we have already done those. My apologies. We have those letters from the Madison Water District, the Madison Sanitary District, the Madison Fire Chief, the Madison Road Commissioner, the Somerset County Sheriff's Office, and the Madison Town Manager. So that is all complete. SR5, supporting documents. Item A, circulation plan noting all pedestrian and vehicle traffic flows, both within the development and in terms of ingress and egress impacted upon the surrounding road systems. And I did see that on something else. Oh yeah, there it is, okay. So does that meet with your approval?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at shaking heads, so I'm going with that.
Yes.
Okay, an erosion control plan, there was an attached letter related to that. And I believe we had asked,
It's also noted on the plan.
I'm sorry?
It's noted here on the plan.
The erosion control plan is also noted on the plan.
Page 1.
Erosion control notes.
Mary.
Thank you.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right, we added various erosion control notes to the actual site plan. And there are details for the erosion control measures on the sheet C501, the detail sheet as well.
You might have seen those somewhere. Okay. And are we in, do those address all the concerns that were raised at the last meeting for erosion control? Okay,
Yes.
good. And, let's see, where was that? That was erosion control. And letter K, construction schedule, costs and performance guarantee arrangement, along with appropriate statements, approved financial capability, and a statement of relationship between developer, design consultant, and project contractor. The letter was attached. Is everyone in agreement with that? Any questions?
Do we have that letter?
Yes, it is the one that says attachments. Oh, no, that's not the letter. That's construction. That's their notes. The letter was there was a letter that was emailed. That was an attachment. I did see that, but I don't see it here.
I haven't seen that.
The attached letter, construction schedule, cost and performance guarantee arrangement, appropriate state.
It looks like this.
We don't have
Under the
that.
construction notes.
Oh, so that's your construction notes, not the letter, okay. I do not see,
Construction schedule, project costs and
Okay.
construction.
I believe there is one. We're going to wait for a letter from main housing, and that's
Right.
finalised as a condition, which will be part of the financial.
So Joel, will that meet the financial guarantee and insurance coverage that's required?
I assume the main housing letter will detail the budget and that it's all funded through that process. I can't really speak to it without seeing it, so I assume that will have all the information about the financials in, and that it's all approved. And
So if we give it conditional approval, you'll make sure, or the CEO will make sure that it meets the financial guarantee required under 48434?
yeah, we'll certainly do that. That's the key part that we need to see. We'll make sure that is checked on once we receive it.
Yeah, main housing is currently vetting $27 million in projects that they received in 3 weeks. So they've got a few projects they're looking at right now. And we're all personally guaranteeing this.
all right. So for SR5, the only thing we're missing is the financial guarantee, the letter from main
Yeah.
housing.
And they won't receive the actual building permit until that's in place. So they won't be able to start anything until we have that letter and we've reviewed it with the code enforcement.
Okay.
Won't issue a building permit until that's satisfied.
If we don't get the letter, it's a moot point anyway.
I'm gonna say you're not gonna be doing it yourself.
That's right. Okay. All right, so moving on to SR6, review criteria. All right, so we need to make sure that they have met all of these. Letter A, and so we're moving into areas that we haven't discussed yet. The proposed development will not result in undue water or air pollution on and off site. Agree that that is correct? That is true? Letter B, the proposed development has sufficient water available for the reasonably foreseeable needs of the proposed development, including but not limited to potable water and fire control.
Yeah, based on the letters, yes.
Letter C, the proposed development will not cause an unreasonable burden on an existing water supply, including private groundwater or the Madison Water District, whichever is to be utilized. And again, we've had the letter from the Water District, Madison Water District. Letter D, the proposed development will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or reduction in the capacity of the land to hold water, so that a dangerous or unhealthy condition may result both on and off site. And the notes here, there will be no additional surface water created and it will be drained adequately. See the attached letter. What was that letter?
I think I got into a rut of writing the attached letter. I think I added it to one spot there. But I think the argument there is it's not going to create any more than what the existing school had.
Good one. Right.
And erosion control measures noted in the
And
construction
noted.
plans.
Yeah. Okay, letter E, the proposed development will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion or unsafe conditions with respect to use of the highways or public roads existing or proposed both on and off site.
Yep, we got the Madison Road Commissioner with us.
And again, an excellent point that there would be less traffic than what the school had when it was there. Okay, letter F, the proposed development will provide for adequate sewage disposal. Again, we have the letter from the Anson Madison Sewer District? Sanitary District, excuse me. See, that's what happens when you have your own septic system. You don't know what it's called. Okay, letter G. The proposed development will not cause an unreasonable burden on the ability of a municipality to dispose of solid waste and sewage if municipal services are to be utilized and has made adequate provision for such disposal. And the town manager has confirmed that there are adequate resources to dispose of municipal solid waste and debris. And this brings a question that I have here. What about, and I'm not sure if it was somewhere else, what are you having for the residents to place their trash in, and what about recycling? Are you making provisions to promote recycling in this complex?
Yeah, we reached out to local providers, Chris Roy's company for recycling and trash removal on site.
And they'll be
And
recycling and trash.
Okay.
Yes, we will be promoting that.
Okay, so will residents be paying for that on their own, or is that a service that's included?
That's a service that's included.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Another quick question there.
Yes, go ahead.
You guys, are there dumpsters anywhere?
There will be dumpsters, yes.
You know where they might be on the plans?
Is that required for the planning board?
Probably not. I'm just curious, especially if you guys have a plan.
They won't be unattractive.
Okay.
I
Nice to
read
see.
somewhere that they were going to be, wasn't there somewhere that I had read that they were going to be, maybe not. Did you have another document related to that? I could have sworn I read something about it.
What are you looking for?
Something about your dumpsters and so on, and prevention of rodent infestation. Yes. Thank you.
I just want to sit next to the fan.
I don't blame
Is it
you.
stuffy in the corner over there?
Oh, good.
Oh, it's cool.
Yeah, it's on a later section, storage of materials. The proposed project contemplates storing all materials within the building or an on-site dumpster sited in such a manner to prevent the breeding and harbouring of insects, rats and other vermin. Yeah. Enclosures in containers, raising materials above grade, separating materials, preventing stagnant water and exterminating procedures and other means. That's standard 48431 on page 12. So it's mentioned
Okay, so
later.
it's in the next.
It speaks to that.
Okay, all right. So we'll come back to that then. Okay, are we, is the letter G satisfied? Okay, moving on, letter H, the proposed development will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic or natural beauty of the area, aesthetics, historic sites, or rare and irreplaceable natural areas, or any public rights for physical or visual access to the shoreline. And according to the developers, the proposal said that the designs, colors, and the roof lines will be pleasing to the eye and will fit into the area. You feel that has been met adequately from the discussion?
Yes.
Letter I, the proposed development is in conformance with all Town of Madison ordinances, the comprehensive plan, development plans, or land use plans.
I have not reviewed the comprehensive plan, but I believe it meets all the others. Or it will.
I guess my only question would be density. If it's too many. But looking around at some of the other apartments, we have others around that size.
We do. And on small lots.
Yeah, I'd note for the record that there's no zoning ordinance or dimensional standards in the town of Madison that would prohibit, I mean, there's none at all, so there's
Right.
no standards that they have to meet in that requirement, which is, it is what it is. I mean, that might have, you know, and there's no locational requirement based off geographical zoning, so that's the board's hands are tied in that regard in terms of what fits where. I mean, apart from the general discussion of fitting in with the neighbourhood, which
Yeah.
is. But how tall are the building's going to be again? I mean, I know you already said they'll fit into the neighbourhood. They're not going to be massively taller than any other building.
No, I mean, they're like a standard 2.5 story.
Yeah.
There's actually a similar building directly across the street from it. If you put some paint on it, it would look fairly similar.
Are you offering to paint somebody's house?
What's that?
Are you offering to paint somebody's house?
When the camera shuts off, we'll talk about it. No, but I mean, ultimately, all these questions, you know, from a business standpoint, we want people to live here, so we want it to look good. We want, you know, we want the trash to be out of the way. We want the parking to work, you know. So.
Okay, letter J, the developer has adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the above stated standards.
Randy was trying to ask you a question.
You can ask it after we answer letter J. I'll come back to you after I answer letter J. Okay. Okay, so we are waiting for the funding from this, who still relies on,
We wait for the letter, right?
yeah. Okay. All right, and letter K does not apply. This is not within shoreline zoning. Letter L, the proposed development will not alone or in conjunction with existing activities adversely affect the quality or quantity of groundwater both on and off site. They're using public utilities, so unless somebody has an accident and we have leaching, then it should not be an issue. Are you all in agreement?
Yeah, agree.
Okay, letter M, the applicant will determine based on the Federal Emergency Management Agency's flood boundary and floodway maps and flood insurance rate maps whether the project is in a flood code zone.
They are not.
Pardon?
They are not fun.
They are not. Okay. So we have out of SR6, letter J still needs to be withheld, and approval withheld on that until we have the letter.
Mary,
Yes, Mark.
10 minutes to 9.
Okay,
We have another application to at least
we do.
review.
We do. So thank you for bringing that up. So we do need to meet with Steve. Can I hold him over? What is your pleasure?
All right, approval. See you guys.
Good job, Sam.
We have SR7, the performance standards to go through. And then Steve will make his presentation. We need to discuss that. Can we do that in 30 minutes?
Okay.
Okay, 9:30 latest?
Sure.
Okay,
Do we pick Steve first?
before we continue this?
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any objections?
If you guys want to finish theirs.
Okay.
I mean, no matter what, if someone's held over,
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're in the middle of something, I
Yeah,
think it
when
makes
you're
sense
finished,
to let's just at least get to the point where we're finished, and then we'll see where we are.
Right.
No, I wouldn't want to stop at that in the middle.
We're on the last item.
Yeah.
Okay, general performance standards, section 484-15, access to lots. The proposal will use existing driveways from Thomas and John Streets, also built to town standards. So, any comment on that? Do they meet the standards?
Okay.
484-16, air emissions. There isn't going to be any emissions from dust, ash, smoke, or other particulate matter. And exterior construction work will not contribute to those issues as well. And a lot of the work will be done inside. Any concerns with emissions? Hearing none. Buffers and screening. It's residential use for this project. Matches the house. Landscaping, they're keeping the trees. Any concerns with buffers and screening?
Yeah, just make sure when they put the trees down, make sure they're away from the power lines, far enough away, so Madison Electric doesn't have to come over and trim them.
I think the power lines are on the other side of the street.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about them putting underground in that they're gonna on that side. And I guess that I think the
It runs down John Street though, doesn't it?
yeah,
Run down John Street.
does that not already exist?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And then they're gonna run underground off there all the way up. So
We're gonna put in those trees that only grow a certain height.
Yeah,
And they stop.
yeah, just the landscape trees, yeah.
I think
with it.
I think one of the most the obvious thing in terms of landscaping and buffers is just to the direct abutter there in the northeast. They've obviously got some stuff on the plan. Hopefully that will. I mean, we can make sure that that is adequate.
Yeah.
You know, after the fact.
Well, that's just a thought from down the road. We don't need to make more. Yeah.
Well, they've obviously already considered that as the main point for requiring buffering. And
Those are indicated on the map.
yeah.
Okay. 484-18, construction standards. They'll meet all state and local codes. And work will be done by local contractors, meaning state contractors. They'll meet all state and local codes. Any questions or concerns with that one? Okay. 484-19, storage of flammable and explosive materials. There should be none. Okay, 484-20, glare. Lighting will be warm yellow, shielded, and directed downward. Any concerns?
There's going to be outside lighting on each individual building, one front and back, just by doorways. No, yeah. Is there any on the parking lot?
No,
Just-
residential.
no big.
484-21, landscaping. The existing mature trees will be preserved and additional street trees with full canopies will be planted, which is always a good thing. The more trees we plant, the better off we are. So they're going to be planting sugar maples or resistant elm trees. Minimal grading work. Any concerns or questions on landscaping? Already kind of discussed that one. 484-22, groundwater impacts. No known pre-existing contaminants in the groundwater. And let's see, there will be no extraction of groundwater. Any concerns or questions? 484-23, sound. Work will be between 7 and 7 each day during daylight hours. There'll be no excess sound. Shouldn't be any more than any usual construction of houses. Any concerns? 484-24, off-street parking and loading. So they'll have 1.5 spaces per unit for 1 and 2 bedroom units, 48 spaces total, 21 include as part of the development of the first 2 buildings. Has that question been adequately addressed or concerned?
Oh, we have the letter as well. I have a question.
Yes,
Do you
Randy.
know how much additional parking is around that on the street?
On the street. Yeah, we haven't counted the street spots. But like a lot.
Yeah, it does seem like quite a bit.
It's a very wide right of way along Weston Avenue.
And I don't think anyone's really parking on it because most people have off-street parking. So, underutilized resource.
But we did discuss it with the road commissioner. I've had a conversation.
And you just utilize on-street parking during the non-plowing months. I remember there was a mention of that in there.
Right. So then after, during the winter, they'll have to park elsewhere.
Yeah, because there's an ordinance in town that when the plows go around, you can't park anywhere in town on Main Street.
Okay, 484-25, odor control. There'll be no emission of odorous air contaminants. Any questions?
So you can't have any skunks around.
None.
None. No.
Can't get rid of them.
484-26, public services will not generate solid waste that will cause undue strain on the town's solid waste system. No hazardous or special waste, and fire protection. So we have all of the letters from the public services. Any concerns there?
Nope.
Okay, sanitary provisions, 484-27. Again, we have the municipal, there'll be a town sewer system. 484-28, there will be no signs, correct? 484-29,
Mary,
soils, yes.
question on the sign.
Yes.
Does, like building numbers, is that gonna count as a sign?
It'd be affixed to the building. It wouldn't be a separate.
It just, yeah, the numbers.
I didn't know if there was gonna
This
be
will
like down
fit it.
here on Park Street, they got the sign for the apartment complex out there.
Yeah, we're not planning any sort of monument type sign.
No.
Numbers that face the buildings.
Do the, does Main State Housing require any sign while it's being developed saying this is funded by?
You can ask.
And not that side. So occasionally I know they insist on that.
So temporary construction period signage, potentially, if required. It's not.
Okay, 484-29, soils. They'll evaluate whether soils be rated severe or very severe for proposed activity. And construction methods will mitigate any of the issues there. Any concerns regarding soils? Especially considering the school was there once before. Okay, soil erosion control, that was
Addressed a couple
noted
times.
on the map. Any questions or concerns? 484-31, storage of materials. All materials will be stored within the buildings or at an on-site dumpster, sited in a manner to prevent the breeding and harboring of insects, rats, or other vermin. It shall be accomplished by enclosures and containers, raising materials above grade, separating material, preventing stagnant water, exterminating procedures, or other means. Okay, my concern with dumpsters, which they will need, is sometimes people other than those who live in the complex may end up using them. Who's going to be responsible for making sure that those dumpsters aren't overflowing at times?
Ultimately, that'd be on us as property managers. And perhaps you might have to put it under lock and key and just have the tenants have that.
That's exactly.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, any question about storage of materials? Moving on. 484-32, stormwater management. The proposal intends to maximize, the existing impervious surface conditions. There are no detention ponds, and we're not within the direct watershed of Weston Lake, although it's within the watershed of the Kennebec River. Any concern there? Your drive isn't paved, right? It's going to be gravel, impervious.
The
Is
driveway?
the driveway paved?
The
existing.
The existing driveway is paved, and then where there's, this side, there'll be pavers for the new parking spaces.
Pavers, okay. Okay.
The walkways are, stoneless.
Okay. Any concern about stormwater management?
As long as, I guess, Public Works or Road Commissioner are fine with it going into the public system, which it seems, so.
Right. And 484-33, street access and driveways. It's using the John Street and Thomas Street for street access primarily. Any concerns there?
So, so this Paul guy knows that he needs to put a driveway in?
He has it already.
Oh, he already has it in? Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because it's not on the map. So we'll see, so he's accessing right to Thomas Street then? Okay.
Okay, 484-34, water quality impacts. There should be no impact to water quality. Any concerns or questions? 484-35, financial capacity. Again, we're waiting on the letters. from Main Housing. Okay. And so the cost of the first two buildings is 5.2 mil. Okay. All right. So, items that still remain, we are permitted, should that be your preference, to offer conditional approval, assuming the following are provided. The map needs to be revised to have the names and addresses of the landowners and abutting landowners. You're going to be adding a walkway to access the vehicle. Since you're revising the map, you might consider putting that on there. So under SR5, you still need, that is letter K, we need the financial guarantee for that, and that basically applies to 3. And SR6, that's letter J. And SR7, that is 44-35. So just the revision to the map for those 2 items and the letter regarding financial.
The only other one I see, Mary, is 484-29 is, it did say that they would confirm the site suitability to the code enforcement officer before construction, the engineer. Technically it says that they will do that. So.
They'll do what?
That they will provide, the sale suitability. I'm sure it's just going through the motions at this point, but technically it does say they'll provide that before they confirming this.
Oh, they will
confirming the
evaluate.
soil type. I mean, I don't think we'll get any problem with that, but
Okay.
technically it needs to be provided.
Yeah. Okay. Regarding the soils.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, there was a medium intensity soil, survey map provided in the application materials. Note number 4 under plan reference on the site plan says proposed development is entirely within soil group STB, which is Stetson, fine sand, loam, 8 to 0% slopes. If you need a letter that says that soil is suitable, we can do that, but it is a suitable sandy loam soil that supported development prior to this one.
I'd be happy with that then if that's the case. I didn't realize it was on there already. That's great. Well, the pleasure of the boss.
All right, so 484-29 is okay. Alrighty, so I will entertain a motion that the application is complete.
I'm pleased to make that motion, Mayor.
Okay, with the conditions, pending the conditions.
And I'll second it, Mayor.
Okay.
With conditions.
With conditions.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? Randy, I forgot you did have a question.
That was the further discussion with
Sorry.
conditions.
Hi. The thing I was just gonna say is I was in the neighborhood, basically looking at the sizes of the houses, and there's probably much bigger houses in the neighborhood than your building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, it might be.
It might. Okay. Alrighty. All in favor, and please signify for the record it's being recorded. State your name, and actually I'll just call your name, and if you say aye or yes. Brett?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Drew? Jeff? Sorry, Jeff?
Yes.
And Randy?
Yes.
Okay, and I also vote in the affirmative. The vote is unanimous. Motion carries. So we look forward to seeing the completed material, and I believe that will be up to Jeff. Is that correct? None of those can be provided until Jay.
Jeff's over here.
What time is it? Yeah, Jeff's over there. What time is it? Okay. So before you issue the building
Yes.
permits?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And which Do we sign this after everything has been approved? There'll be a map in the office, the revised map will be in the office.
What we'll do is, I mean, I will write up the findings of facts, conclusions of law,
Okay.
which will state the conditions of approval, but ideally, if we can just have those conditions of approval added to a final site plan, we can get the large.
Do you want it 24 by 36?
Yeah. And then once we've got
Or do you
those-
want it smaller? We can.
No.
No, okay.
we'll have those conditions noted on the plan and on the final letter, and then everyone, well, Mary will sign the letter, but the whole board will sign those new plans. And you know, if you already have those walkways designed in, for example, you can include those on the new plans.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right, so.
Thank you, Steve, for letting us finish.
I went through some.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on.
I really don't know what you have or don't have, so.
We have your,
We
a
have-
letter
We have this.
and some pictures of the buildings.
We have that one, we have a basic letter describing the project.
And a sketch map, and then we have this map that
Yeah, we have the basic design and then a brief narrative.
So we
And
didn't
it's-
give you the application I
It's-
sent to him?
it's my understanding.
We don't actually need that at this point, it's just the pre-application stage, so we're just reviewing the preliminary site plan and our site sketch, so.
So was it, because when I spoke with Tim, and we were between code enforcement officers at the time, he wasn't sure if this fell under the purview of the planning board or what. And
That's
so
true,
has
that's-
that been determined already?
Well, that's actually one thing that between the code enforcement officer and the board, we can actually finalise if the board agrees that they want to carry this forward, because it's right on the threshold of the 5,000 feet if we look at the new building, but there's other considerations looking at the plan. So the board might want to determine whether they want to take this through full site plan review or literally just delegate it to code enforcement, building permit process. Based off the information we have now, it's right on that threshold of 5,000, but there's a few other things, there's maybe a bit more changes to impervious service, moving of a couple of the existing building. Tim did mention that if the board wished, we could make that decision before we move any further on it. And I can clarify the applicability regulations if anyone would like.
That would be good, because I do not have a new ordinance still, and I could not find it that mentioned that threshold. So I don't have any of that. All I have is the old applicability, and the site plan does apply to the following, which would include this then. That would be my interpretation. Expansion of existing commercial, or where the expansion adds 800 square feet, but we're talking about 5,000? Is that right?
The
No.
building mentioned this.
Or a new commercial, retail, industrial land use, but this is commercial. There was something there. A question I have, though, looking at this map right here, where it's yellow, it looks like that building is going to straddle the property line.
Right. Do you want me to explain the project? It might help.
That would be perfect,
I'd
thank
love
you.
to.
And with the understanding we have 20 minutes to get, and I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't want to rush through it because it's a very
Right,
important
exactly.
project to my client. I don't want to screw it up in any
Right.
way, shape, or form. So this is on 466 Lakewood Road. Charlie and Son Autos, they've been in business there since 1993. So most of the impervious has been there for that amount of time. They do have a small office existing, and there's a small garage. And what he does plan on doing is tear down the garage, and he wants to move the office. And right behind where the office exists now, and up to where the existing gravel is, he wants to build a 50 by 100 building. Or basically, he's going to move the office in that, and he's going to put together, he's got his retail trailer business there, so he's going to have a place for trailer parks, and they are going to put together trailers. There's going to be no physically building of anything, there's going to be no noise or anything like that. As far as what Joel said about moving the building, on the far end of his property, pre-existing, there's the log cabin that sits there. Well, the log cabin is not Charles's. It was, the previous owner built it, and someone else bought it, and they have not removed it yet. It's sitting on a gravel pad. And what Charles wishes to do is just move the office to that, on that pad. As far as the boundary line, CDR Properties owns the property to the south, and Charles and his wife own the property to the north where the existing buildings sit. And he is currently, CDR Properties, which is Charles, is currently going through a loan process with Franklin Savings Bank. And part of that process is transferring ownership of the existing property to CDR Properties, and therefore making the boundary line disappear.
In other words, making 2 lots into 1.
Yes, because it would be the same owner on each side. And it's not a subdivision, so that the line will truly go away for setback purposes.
And I guess we're still talking 5,000 square feet, and the ordinance applicability mentions, we changed it to 3,000, right, for new commercial, retail or industrial structures, so maybe that settles that.
Because this is a new commercial.
Yeah, there's going to be a new building regardless, so I think we're duty bound to review it.
So what's the 5,000 that you're talking about? Is that something?
That might be me making it up.
Okay.
I think that might be Scotty. I knew you guys had increased it, but I didn't really, yeah, it's still at 3,000. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Scotty Egan's. So.
All right, because I didn't think that we had gone that high when we were talking about it. So, okay, yeah. So it does need to come before us then. Does the board agree with that assumption?
Agreed.
Based on this, okay. So, is this, so we don't have, do we have the pre-application? We don't have the pre-application.
So last week I sent the full applications of the town manager, assuming that it would be distributed.
Yeah,
Assuming
I think this counts as the sketch plan, which we can, for SR1, we can go through.
Right.
Yeah, and the information on the, if everyone got this other document.
The letter, okay, but we don't have the, was there another paper that, I thought I saw something else.
Is this a prefab?
I've got plans if you want to see them.
But it's not, it's stick built then?
Yep, we're yeah, some plans.
Okay, so we were also given tonight the pre-app.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Okay,
I think we can get through SR1 with what we've got.
Okay, got it. Okay, so let's move on. Looking at, does everyone have this paper, the pre-app?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, I don't know that here, this does not help. Okay, so the project name, applicant, and designer.
Yeah, we have, Charles Robbins, CDR Properties, I guess.
And we have a letter, so.
Yep.
Who's the designer?
I guess Ware Butler, but if we're looking at the actual.
Where do you see where Butler at?
Well, that's who's generated the things for the actual structure there, the basic base plans there.
Oh.
Within this.
Sketches, okay. Of the buildings, okay. The one thing that bothers me is, for SR1, it says the sketch has all of these items on it, but the sketch doesn't have all of those items on it. For example,
And I will apologize, because I was under the impression that we were
the designer.
under full, you guys are going to look at the application tonight. I had no idea this was rehab.
Yeah, this was the first we'd heard of it, so.
I'm just telling you where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, no, it's not really, but that's not your issue.
Well,
I mean, technically, we have the,
In the application, there's a nice printed soils map.
Oh, well, that's what we don't have yet. Okay, so are we going to accept letter A since the designer is kind of indicated on the diagrams? Or is that something that you want on the map?
Is CDR Properties the applicant, or is Charles Robbins?
It's technically CDR Properties, I would say.
Okay. So all we're missing really is the designer, and that's on the building drawings.
Right.
So I think we can accept
You're
it
good to
as
go.
complete. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Date, north, arrow, and scale.
Yep.
Perimeter boundaries, area and acreage of proposed development and preliminary building footprints. There's no future development plan, right? Any future?
This is the only
development?
development plan at this time.
Okay. All right. Agreed that that's met.
Agreed.
D, tentative locations of rights-of-way and future lot lines or easements.
There's nothing proposed.
Yeah.
looks good to me.
Letter E, a copy of the USDA soil survey map for the area and the parcel outline. I don't think we have
It's
a
not in
soil
there. I
survey.
mean, I have it right
Yeah,
here.
Steve's got it. Can you give that to Mary?
I can.
Double check we didn't get that.
You know what?
I just want to double check we didn't get it. I mean, it's weird that we didn't get that.
Unless it was sent by email. 'Cause
Yeah,
I know I
that's what I
looked at
wanted to double check.
everything on email, but I can't remember like so many documents.
It was with, the application was with the plan.
Okay, I'm going to pass this on down, so those who are more in tune to that, such as Mark probably.
I mean, I can't speak for Tim. That might have just been an oversight on his part that
Yeah.
he didn't quite include it on the packet. But you know, I guess if everyone wants to take a look at that.
Yeah. So that property is outlined and the soils are shown on the map. We'll pass that on down as everyone looks at it, and I think it's,
I'm still learning.
land cover areas, we can move on while we're looking at that. Land cover areas, that is woods and fields.
Yep.
Trees, grass, trees. Yeah. Gravel area. Yeah.
Are we good with that?
Yes. Yep.
Letter G, general natural features of the area to be developed, areas of steep slopes, bedrock outcrops, ponds, streams, wetlands, floodplains.
Are there any of those, Steve?
Any what?
Any of the,
There's no steep slopes, bedrock, there's no ponds, no
Wetlands.
streams.
No wetlands.
so they're all shown?
Yes.
Anything there would
All
be.
right.
There is no floodplain.
Yep.
So even back behind the gravel area, there, it's not a wetland or anything?
It is not.
Okay.
It's the ball field for the church,
Oh, that's right. That's
which
right.
might have been wet at one time.
Yeah.
That's right, okay. Letter H, tentative location of proposed structures, which was one, locations of existing structures and neighboring land uses. Those are all shown on the map. So, are we in agreement that the section SR1 has been met?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we're good to go, and do you want to bring this back to the next meeting?
I do.
Okay.
What date's that?
Oh, so you have everything ready to go?
I do.
You want to do it in 2 weeks?
I can.
Yeah, August 9th? That's right.
It would be August 9th. That would be our regularly scheduled meeting,
At 7?
7 PM here. I don't expect it to be crowded. All right. So 7 PM on August 9.
So, I'm gonna ask you this, who do I distribute the applications to? Who do I send that to?
Will they send it to you, Joel?
Tim probably. And you can copy me in, but Tim probably like to formally receive those.
And then Tim can email those out to us and then print them off. Okay. Any other questions, Steve?
I think it's fairly straightforward project.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
It's in an
And you've
industrial
been,
zone.
You've been before us before anyways.
Yes.
Okay. Any other business to come before the board? Hearing none? Okay. And therefore the meeting, yes.
No question. We always discuss this, I can never get the straight answer out of you. Well, maybe I do. As far as the financial letter, basically I got a letter from the bank, and it's true, CDR Properties is currently in the process of a construction project located at Madison. CDR Properties has managed all accounts appropriately, maintaining substantial financial stability. Is that good enough to meet your financial criteria, or do you need a dollar?
Usually they have a dollar amount, don't they?
Is that required? Or is it kind of none of your business in a way?
Well, it is, because you gotta have the money in the account, and the bank's gotta verify, because you gotta have how much the project's gonna cost,
Right,
and
but
then
you got a bank knowing the project, and they're willing to verify it.
if they say that you got the minimum amount in there, say if it's 58,000, they can just write down he meets and exceeds 58,000. That's usually what people write.
Well, that's what that letter says, is they've met the...
Right, and I guess that's always been my heartburn. It's why tell you how much a project is if you don't need to know, unless it says it in your ordinance. That's my heartburn.
What did your letter say again?
It says it in D, a letter from the bank. The credit is available to finance the proposed project, or that the institution intends to fund the project, indicating the amount of funds and the specified uses.
But you didn't say that, so I know now it's in there.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, we don't need to know how much money someone has individually.
Oh, no.
But we need to know that they've got enough to cover the budget for the project.
Right.
Or, whatever the financing arrangement might be.
Good deal.
Okay, so was that answered? to your
I'm all set,
satisfaction?
thank you.
Okay. With no other business, the meeting is adjourned. 6 minutes before 9:30. I'll have you know during my watch. So there we go. And thank you
Recording
for-
stopped.